This is Patrick here with MT Knives, and just finishing up here, putting on some handles, and I thought I'd share with you kind of how I do that. I'm using epoxy here, and with epoxy it's important that you get the right mixture, and I try for equal parts here. What I've done is I have an outline on this tabletop you can't see, but it's just two equally sized circles so that I know how to get the right amount, and I found that this works pretty good. So then I just mix this epoxy up here. Now some tools I use, I got some needle nose pliers. I've already dry fitted all my parts together, made sure everything fit nice and clean. I've cleaned the surfaces of the steel, making sure that it's free of any oils or dirt, any kind of residue, and want to make sure you get this epoxy mixed up well. So, and I wear gloves. Sometimes I don't. Just a little easier clean up. Gloves are kind of a hassle, but you want to make sure you have all your materials ready. One thing about this epoxy is it sets up pretty quick, so I've tried, seems 2 knives work good for me, doing 2 knives at a time. So that's what I do. I actually have enough epoxy mixed up probably for 3, but you really don't want to push that limit, because you get some knives. You run into problems sometimes when you're trying to put them together, and then if your epoxy setting up, just bad things. So anyways, you want to make sure you completely coat the entire scale. Try not to try when you get your putting this on, get it right where it needs to go, so you're not sliding around, so you get both your pins in there. I try to place the front of my handle all the way in first, to hopefully push any excess epoxy down, not up. It's good to kind of have a set way you do it. That way you consistently do it every time, you don't miss a step. One important thing is when we put this mosaic pin in, you want to double check that you have it the way you want it facing, because once that epoxy sets, it's done. And I have put in mosaic pins wrong. Okay, get my mosaic pin. I'm going to roll half of it in the epoxy. I'll stick it in one side, twisting it as I go. That coats it well. I turn it around, I stick it in the other side, twisting it as I go. That seems to get a good coat. Get it facing the way I want it. Put my clamps on. I like to make sure I use plenty of epoxy. It's kind of messy, but better too much than not enough. Get all my clamps on. I'll check my pin. Actually got that pretty well right where I want it. Give it a little tweak. I like it. And now I'm going to pull these brass pins back out, because they actually get, once these have set up, I'll ream that hole back out, and then I'll peen these brass pins. So you've got the epoxy holding the handle on, and then you've got, with the brass pins, you got a mechanical fastened to the knife. Now this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes these pins take more time to get out. So if you're trying to do 3 knives, you can get yourself in a pickle if you have problems with the pin on both your knives. You get to that third one and then you're really fighting everything. So that's how you do it. And I'm not done with that either. I'm going to go back and clean up the front, but I get both these glued up before this epoxy starts setting up. You might be thinking, mixing that epoxy on the table. Well, I clean it off when I'm done, and then I reuse that same spot each time. Works pretty good. My pin's in. So. Had a pretty good week. This will be the 20th knife with the handle on. There's still a lot of work from this point. Still have several hours of sanding the handle. Got to sharpen the blade still, polish the blade, and then etch it, finish the sheaths. So this is kind of a nice point, is start seeing some progress at this point. Actually starts coming together, looking like a knife. Feels kind of good to get to this point. It's Saturday and I'm working. My boss made me work today. Wasn't happy with all the work I got done this week, so here I am. I want to try to get all these knives done by the end of the year. That's my goal. And it's going to be tough, but I think I'll get her done. Okay, check that pin. You always want to have extra supplies around too, in case you drop something. Extra pins, extra clamps, extra everything. Because at this point in time, this stage of the game, sometimes I wipe this excess epoxy off. You don't have time for mistakes. Check my pin one more time. That pin, man, if you even have it off just the slightest bit, you gotta have it just right. Okay, now for the cleanup, I'll leave all that excess epoxy. Like I was saying, it's good to have extra stuff around. That's the last of my Q-tips. I have to get creative. Get a paper towel up here. Okay, now I'm going to take and come along and wipe that extra epoxy off. You have to be very careful doing this. You don't want too much stuff on your Q-tip. You just, if you wipe too much, you'll wipe the epoxy from underneath the handle, leaving a void where dirt and trash will get stuck on the knife. And if you don't wipe enough, you have excess epoxy that looks trashy on the knife. Yeah, I don't have enough here. Looks pretty good. Double check my pen one last time. Set that down with the finished ones. Come over here. And as I'm bringing that Q-tip down, I'm kind of twisting it, getting rid of that epoxy, and Really makes it look nice. You don't twist it, you just kind of push that epoxy around. Most people don't notice that stuff. Alright, I'm going to turn this pen just a little bit. I like it. Alright, there you go. That's how I put on the handles. These will sit overnight. These are the ones I did last night. And I'll sand down that mosaic pen. You gotta be careful not to get it too hot or you'll ruin the pen. Drill out these holes, put in new brass pins, peen them, and clean her up. So, this is Patrick with MT Knives. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Leave a comment. Share this video with a friend. You guys have a good weekend.